Good Friday morning, guys. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to Real Talk, an insider's guide to real estate life, the pursuit of happiness. We're presented by the Yes Team Realtors. Yes, Realty Partners. We're powered by Intrastate Pest and Service Companies, live across Central Virginia, the Commonwealth, the country, and the world on the I Love CVille Network. Friday, a roundtable extraordinaire lined up by the executive producer, the distinguished gentleman, the man himself, Keith Smith. Good Friday morning, my friend.
Good Friday morning to you, Jerry. I've always looked forward to our Friday shows, and it's kind of like a great way to start your weekend. And we've got a pretty awesome roundtable today, and I'm excited to kind of tear into the subject and frankly have a lot of fun. My wife, I put Yona on a train today to go see our kids today and daughter, and I was talking to her the thing, and I just realized that our two guests and Yona and I are all kind of connected through the CVille Scholarship Foundation. James and I were navigators. Juandiego was on the board with Yona. So It's kind of a small world how we're all kind of interconnected. So it's going to be a fun show today.
It's going to be a great show. Judah Wickhauer is the director, my friend. Let's go Hollywood Square style, if you could, and let's get two gentlemen on the show that make the program look a heck of a lot better. Juandiego Wade, I think you know. We will get to this gentleman here in a matter of moments. This gentleman's first rodeo here. Why don't we start with James Watson on this Friday morning? James, before we talk shop, sir, how about an introduction to you to everybody that's watching?
Okay, well, good morning to everybody, and thank you all for inviting me. Everybody who watches the show probably knows I tend to comment, and I really enjoy it. My wife is like, are you watching that show again? So sometimes I even have to sneak the show. Keith Smith is my brother-in-law, so we're family, and I've known Jerry for, as he said earlier, for about 20 years. I knew him back when he was an undergrad, and I was a bartender on the UVA corner, and those were some priceless memories during that time. I have 3 children. Been in Charlottesville for almost 30 years.
One of them's right there behind you.
Oh yeah, one of them's. That's right.
Yeah.
That's Xavier. He came in. He's on spring break, so this is how he's spending his spring break right now, hanging out with Dad.
I respect that.
Yeah, we've had a pretty good week because my wife is out. She's out of town, so Xavier and my other son, we're all at the house trying to maintain. I don't want to go on too long, but so yes, I have a master's in urban planning. That has taken me to a very unique set of opportunities. I've primarily supported the federal government and the Department of Defense on projects where the government is looking at how to reinvest, modernize, be environmentally sustainable with military bases around the globe. So that's really afforded me the opportunity to pretty much see most of the United States and some countries abroad.
I respect the bringing your little boy to work. My wife a couple weeks ago had her COVID shot, and the children, my son, was not allowed to go because of COVID reasons to get the shot. So Juandiego, wait, I had my little boy who's 3 on my lap while doing a show. You yourself a father, so you can certainly respect this as well, my friend. How about an introduction to you, the family, everything before we talk shop?
Yes, thank you. So yes, my daughter is now a freshman in college, but she has been involved with me on the school board and things for years, and so I've been in plenty of meetings with her in my lap and things. So I can certainly empathize with that. A little bit about myself: I grew up in Richmond, Virginia, and my love for planning and how cities work was based on what I grew up with, and I saw these big interstates, Interstate 95, just cut through communities of color. I wonder, and as we would go up and down the East Coast, I would see it cut through Baltimore, Philly, and different places. I was like, why does it always seem to me communities of colors that it would happen with? And so that's how I got into planning. Went to Norfolk State, learned about that, had opportunity to come to the University of Virginia to learn even more about how does planning work and how does that whole process work. And that's how I got into planning. And I've been a transportation planner for many years, over 20 years, and during that time I had opportunity to work on comprehensive plan and zoning ordinances and review many studies, and so that's how I got to love for city and how it functions and communities and how they grow or not grow. And so this is a really exciting for me to be here today to talk about this with you all. And so thank you for the opportunity.
So now you know why I invited the two of them. I mean, these guys are rock star in that. Hey, Juandiego, have you read this book?
I haven't, but I heard about it, and
well, I'm going to give you this copy at the end of the show today and return it when you're done.
As long as you don't say I have to read it before June 8th.
I know, I was going to say, this man's pretty busy. Or before November 2nd.
Yes, even better. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, second thought. After the election, I'll give it to you.
It might be after, okay, I'm not even going to say this. If the man's elected, might be after, you might read it in 5 years.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's an interesting book. I met the author a couple of times, had dinner with them, and it basically talks about what you just spoke about, how these divisions happen within the cities and how actually zoning caused some of this. So it's an interesting book, really great read. I'll give it to you after you're elected and when you're on vacation. How does that sound?
Thank you for your confidence, sir.
So, I just kind of wanted to kind of kick this off. We've been having this roundtable discussion about let's call it what it is. There's a lack of inventory. There's a lack of affordable housing, depending on what your definition of what that might be. But there's clearly a lack of affordable housing. And one of the things that I've been kind of researching into it is what has the current zoning ordinances, and we don't want to geek out too much on this, guys, but the zoning ordinances have kind of forced this to happen, forced us to go out. So I'm going to throw that out to either one of you, whoever want to jump in first on it. And do you feel the same way? Do you feel that there has to be zoning reform, for lack of a better term, to try to get some affordable housing within the city? And I'll just let whoever wishes to jump in first.
So, James, I'll go ahead and jump in. You can chime in as well. When I was, just kind of cutting my teeth on this in school, I actually found this to be true, is that, the comprehensive plan is kind of this big kind of pie in the sky type of things you aspire to do as a community, you get input on. But the zoning ordinance is kind of that legal document that kind of says how you're going to do those things you have in the comprehensive plan, specifically what it's going to look like in this block, in this community. And so it's kind of gnarly, some zoning ordinance can be, but I think that you have to rewrite it, or that's the place you have to start with to see if you want to have, affordable housing or commercial, whatever type of, however you want your community to look. That's that legal document that tells the developer, the community, how you're going to do it, what it's going to look like. So
the comprehensive plan is, I use the term as a non-obligatory document, right? It's just a plan to help guide elected officials through the process and help developers and community activists through the process. But James, I think we're all agreeing that, from my perspective anyway, single-family detached zoning, right, is a great thing, but we've got to figure out a way to increase density in that. And this term's been thrown around, missing middle, right? And it has two different kind of definitions to it, or paths to it. One is more structural, right? One is like physical, like we have apartments and single family detached, and what does the middle look like? The other is economic. So as planners, take a stab at, from your perspective, what do you think the missing middle means from a structural perspective? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so, in America, there's been this concept of the American dream, which has been to own a home on a single lot, with a golden retriever and
white picket fence.
Mm-hmm. And, over time, our zoning laws, not just in Charlottesville, but throughout the country, have followed that pattern. And, most of America is automobile dependent. And, of course, the auto industry has always loved that, too. They've even bought trolley car tracks. Charlottesville used to have an actual trolley car. Mm-hmm. Ran even not just down Main Street, but there's photos of the trolley car running out to Belmont, if you look back like 70, 80 years ago. So we're at a time now, particularly in Charlottesville, Economics 101 says supply and demand. When the demand is high, supply is low, prices will rise. And so the place we're at today is, how do we retrofit sort of maybe mistakes that have been made 30, 40 years ago, we have a completely built out, encroached city with 10.3, we say it all the time on the show, 10.3 square miles, and there's no new dirt. And so zoning is one of the ways we can enhance, improve, encourage mixed use, higher development. But of course, there's challenges that come with that too, because you have to get a return on investment most of the time if you're going to put the money out there. In general, and we're going to be talking about this, of course, throughout the show, but there's going to have to be a multitude of creative ideas and people to spearhead, the change that is needed here in order to accommodate more families in Charlottesville and Albemarle and even some of the surrounding areas.
I can offer some background on this, and you guys are the experts, but I've done some reading on it. The zoning laws were put in place, say in a municipality like Charlottesville, frankly, to prevent white flight from happening. The zoning laws, 53% of the land is zoned for single-family R1. And what was happening was a lot of the families were sprinting from the city to the county. And the zoning laws were put in place to do these single-family detached lots to try to change that course of action and keep families in the city of Charlottesville. As a result, more than half the property is for one home on a lot and for a family's home in R1. And now we're left with the situation that the land in Charlottesville's been all built out. Where's the property going to go? Where's the density going to go? And we're going to have to go to Richmond as a Dillon rule state to potentially change those zoning laws. That's not something that can be corrected by the city council.
And I'll direct this to Juandiego
Sure.
because he'll probably know this answer. But they do have tools available to them right now to go ahead and help this. If they choose to use it, is a different story.
What are those tools?
Well, I'll let Juan answer that question if he wants to tackle it. But before I do that, I ran a quick set of numbers: 0 to 250,000. What's available within our CAR footprint, Charlottesville Association of Realtors footprint, to include Waynesboro and Augusta? Very simple. Between 0 and 250, single-family detached and single-family attached, there's only one property available in the city of Charlottesville that's under $250,000. So the question is, what zoning tools is there? When you get elected and you sit on the city council, what tools I know what I think of tools available, but I think from your perspective, what tools are available to trying to help that now? I mean, these comprehensive plan rewrites take 5 years, zoning amendments take forever to go through the system, which are all good things. They're designed to do that way for public engagement. But what tools do you think is available now that could possibly help that situation? Is that a fair question?
Well, it is a fair question, and it really comes down to, what do we value as a community? And that public input process. We have updated our comprehensive plan many times, our zoning ordinance. And so what we have to do as a community is just decide what, do we value affordable housing? Do we value, and where do we want them? Because we know where the land is. You're right, we're pretty much landlocked here in the city. And where there is land, I've been here about 20 years, actual resident of the city. And property, that when I first got here that was considered not developable, now it's infill because it's worth it. In one sense, this is a good problem to have because people want to come here. People value living in the city. They like the services and the atmosphere that we create. But we have to, have a situation, environment where people still want to that live here, grew up here, can stay here if they want. So what we have to do is reduce the process. Still have that public input, but not make it so long to change the zoning ordinance. But we have to talk with all parts of the community and say, this part of the city is filled in. Are there opportunities on other areas? We may not want to go Houston route where we say, okay, no more zoning. And when I was in grad school, that was the prime example of places that they use is like they don't have any zoning ordinance, and so you could have a church next door to a gun shop next door to a bar and things like that. I don't think that we want that in this community. We want this is in place, but we have to have an opportunity to have people input on this, because that zoning is that tool that we need to get small businesses in, affordable housing and things like that. And I just want to add things like if you look at different quads, duplexes and triplexes, and so, as I walked around the city, I've seen wonderful examples of how they can be integrated into a single family unit type of community. So it can be done, and it can be done successfully if we have the proper input in the developers that want to put the time into doing it.
Juandiego, that's exactly where I wanted to go. I wanted to go. So I sit on a national cohort that's looking at auxiliary dwelling units as a possible solution for affordable housing. We as a city have an auxiliary dwelling unit ordinance. In my opinion, it needs to be tweaked a little bit, and we can surely get into that a little bit later. But I'm also part of a program out in Seattle and Portland where they just did that. Now, this would require a Dillon Will a change, but what they did is they said, look, in a single-family detached lot with all this criteria, you have to meet all kinds of requirements, but you can put, I believe, depending on the jurisdiction, anywhere between 4 to 6 residents on a single-family detached lot. So to me, that's a very the ADU unit is a quicker path. We can do that internally. We can help bring some inventory to the market at a certain price point. The other one is obviously going to require a state level change to go ahead and do that. But James, I know you and I, when we have our family get-togethers, right, and everybody's huddling around lasagna, James and I are in the corner talking planning. So what's your opinion of ADUs and auxiliary dwelling units, and will they be able to help?
So I think it's, you guys always say there's no silver bullet. I think it's one solution of many that, folks need to look at, that the City Council, Planning Commission, and our leadership, need to take up to Richmond if we need to, change the laws. I do think there's I've done a lot of renovation, as you know. I do think there's a lot of expense that the homeowner has to take on in order to partake in an ADU. I mean, if I'm somebody who owns a home in Belmont, if I want to offer more, a dwelling for a family, I'm looking at maybe taking out a loan for $100,000
or
right?
more.
You gotta make sure there's electrical, plumbing. You got to get all your permits. It could take 2 years. So I think it's one of the many remedies, but you have to have private citizens willing to say, yeah, I want to go out and spend the money and the time and take the risk. Maybe jumping a little more in the weeds to Charlottesville specifically, one of the things I've thought about as when you invited me to be on the show is I thought a lot about the university. You guys call it the big elephant in the room. And I know that they've got a plan to bring more students back on grounds. And I think that if they could do that and require, let's say, all first and second year students to be on grounds, and even take that out to some of the graduate schools. I mean, if you look at UVA, we have one of the best medical, law, and business schools. In my spare time, I used to drive Uber. I would pick up people from Darden that had already made several $100,000 by the time they were 30. And, so they would be here going to school and having a good time. And they are sometimes cause families not to be able to afford a home. What's unique is you think of a college student as being broke. I know I was broke.
I was broke.
Yeah.
I was dead broke.
I was broke.
I was working at Ruby Tuesdays as a host and waiter and busboy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But
Ooh,
anybody
I would have gave
living
anything
here,
to see that.
I was dead broke.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. But, UVA has that, it just has, a percentage of students that come here with parents that are willing to keep, sending the money. And so if just imagine, I don't know if UVA has 14,000 undergraduates, but if you took 3,000 to 4,000 students and said, hey, you have to live on campus now, right? And maybe they live 2 or 3 normally in an apartment. If you just opened up 1,000 more housing possibilities just from that alone, that could provide more opportunities for some people. And again, that's just one of many to go along with ADUs. There isn't just one solution, but I think one of the more tangible ones that we could probably support, all of us affordable housing advocates, is, hey, do that dense development on grounds or near grounds on JPA. I think Matthew Gilligan talks about that a lot, because there's a lot of this that's a little less tangible. Like even with the ADUs, like I said, you're depending on a private landowner to go out and build what people used to call a grandmother's suite on their property. But kind of working with UVA, I think is a big way to sort of slow down their encroachment on the city and open up some housing stock.
So you and I, because of COVID, our families haven't had our traditional Sunday weekly sit-down breakfast, and you and I sneaking in the corner to geek out about this stuff. But you both of you gentlemen are aware that UVA is in the fight, right? I happen to sit on one of the engagement teams on that, and they're not. We're not talking the student question, but they are working to bring between 1,000 and 1,500 affordable units to the city of Charlottesville via some of the land they have. Now the process is very long. It hasn't been formally announced yet, and we're going through this, and there's really not too much I can talk about it. But that 20-ton elephant is in the room, right? That 20-ton elephant is sitting in my executive committee for the Regional Housing Partnership. So that's been something that I know James and I have spoken about hundreds of times. Why isn't UVA in the game? And they are in the game.
Let me throw this to you here. I've been in this town for 21 years. First job out of the University of Virginia was as a reporter for the Daily Progress. That was in 2005. In 2005, I've been hearing folks say that UVA is in the game, UVA is committed to this, UVA is committed to that. We're 16 years later. Yeah. What has happened? And then I'm going to throw this to you. University of Virginia is admitting more people.
Yeah.
Because they're a business. Yeah. They want to make money. Sure. If they admit more people, those students have to live somewhere. And the students eventually are going to live off grounds. Yeah. And if they live off grounds, they're going to cannibalize housing stock that otherwise could go to Charlottesville locals.
So 2 things to that.
Yeah.
The difference is a gentleman by the name of Jim Ryan. The president has tackled this on personally. I don't think that's ever happened before. This is high on his... Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, it is. I just want to add to that. I agree. I've been involved with various aspects of nonprofits in housing in this community for nearly 30 years. But when President Ryan got in, one of the things that he wanted to do was to see where the university was having an impact on the community. And so he appointed a working group, community university working group, and I was honored to be named co-chair of that. And he said, what are some 2 or 3 things that we as a university can do first? Because there's a lot of impact. What are the 2 or 3 things? And housing was one of the things that we immediately approached. I like to use my example. When I was in grad school from 88 to 90, I stayed at a house that was right behind the corner restaurant with 3 or 4 other guys. And I think that, at the time I was paying $300 or $400 a month. It was a lot for me then, but that house was maybe going for $1,500, $1,600 then. But on the open market in the 80s, maybe $400 or $500 a month if it was rented to a family. And so that's the impact and the difference. I think some of the housing that's being built now is kind of strictly kind of for the kind of what we call club ed type of, student. So, some students may not want what I had in grad school. They want a lot more amenities and things like that, and a lot is being built towards that. And if it was available, it may not be for a typical Charlottesville family with, 2 or 3 kids may not want that type of setting. This is the type of conversation that we have to have as a community as we move forward. If the university is going to, have that type of any type of movement, we need to see what impact that's going to have on the community. But we have to be able to sit down with one another and kind of respect either other people's input, even though we may not agree with it, and to kind of figure out how we're going to move forward. Because I tell people that Charlottesville will be kind of kind of a Mayberry type of more smaller southern town without the University of Virginia here. Maybe some people want that, but we have it. It is here, and we have to move and grow forward together.
And I think the other end of it, and to play off of Juandiego's statement, is at this table are all these four pillars I constantly talk about. We have the private sector at the table. We have the nonprofits, and we have the University of Virginia and the local governments there. But we also have the people who are actually going to live in these units or try to, the people who we serve there. And I don't think that's ever happened before.
Yeah.
And so we're optimistic guys by our very nature, right?
Yeah, and so Keith, I'm sorry, I just want to add a fifth pillar that that's at the table. Oh, that's probably not at the table, but should be, but is kind of lingering also in the background is the history of racism, of disenfranchising people of color and the different things, and so many things that's going on there that's showing the impact of that. That just has to be factored in the decisions and the history that's going on now. I mean, when I was in grad school here, the worst place that you could think about that when I got here. And by the way, when I came here, coming from Richmond, I didn't think it was any bad neighborhood.
This is a piece of cake, right?
Yeah. but at the time it was Dice Street. You didn't want to go around Dice Street. I did door knocking on Dice Street a couple of days ago. It is wonderful. It's a wonderful place to live and grow and raise a family. So things have really changed in the city.
So I'd like to play off of that and personally invite you to attend the regional housing partnerships. I happen to be the chairman, so I could kind of do that a little bit.
Yes.
I'll take a little bit of chairman's prerogative on
sir.
that. They are open to the public. I will make sure you get invites on it.
Thank
because you're 100% right. But, and maybe you can help add to that conversation. So, look what just happened here. You just got yourself volunteer for more
there you go.
volunteer
Talking too much.
volunteer work. No, it's okay. I do the same thing,
Yeah.
by the way.
We have a lot of comments coming in for you guys. So why don't we get to Troy Razor Robinson? And I'll throw this to James first. We got to get James in the mix here. Juandiego, you as well here.
Yes, sir.
James, this is from Troy Razor Robinson. What recommendations do you fellas have that will educate the people that have limited knowledge about the subject matter so they will know what avenues to take so they are prepared to get a home if the rules change?
Could you repeat the very last part of what you said?
He says is like, where can we get more knowledge if the rules change? What recommendations do you fellas have that will educate the people that have limited knowledge about the subject matter so they will know what avenues to take so they are prepared to get a home if the rules change?
Yeah.
That's a great question.
Yeah. Well, Razor's a highly intelligent guy too.
Yes.
Got me thinking here. Well, one of the avenues though will be our elected officials, right? That's why we elect them. One, to help us make these changes, but two, to keep us informed. I would say watch your network too. You have a variety of folks on here all the time from various communities that are spreading information. Get with your local churches, any of the existing nonprofits. I don't know if there's just one avenue to go to get that information. Maybe Juan may.
Yeah. You hit the nail on the head. It's definitely not one avenue, and the nonprofits would be like, if I'm fortunate enough to be elected and someone were to come to me, I would recommend that they do go to Piedmont Housing Alliance. They have a very good program where they can inform, provide education. Habitat for Humanity, if you kind of get in their track, they have several stages where people can, get the background that they need to, whether it's financing or being educated about the different loans. Those are just two phenomenal nonprofits in the community that's on the front line of working with first-time home buyers to purchase homes here in the city.
So I'm going to give a little plug out to the Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission, because what we have just recently done under the Regional Housing Partnership is create a website that we've just launched it talks about property that are for sale and for rent at the particular, but the purpose of it was a conduit, and there is a list of resources on it. So we will make sure we embed that link in here. But Razor, to answer your question, and Razor and I are playing a little bit of Facebook messaging tag, is to play off a little bit what James has said, is what you do, what we do here. I mean, this network has a reach to it, and Razor, I'm trying to schedule some time to come on so Razor can talk about this. But I think the more it's
blowing up right now. There's so many comments coming in here.
but that's this beautiful thing called social media, right? It's a great thing and maybe not so much a great thing. And what we're trying to use it is for positive change and move this discussion forward. So Razor and I are trying to coordinate it and to come on in here.
Neil Williamson, is UVA the affordable housing villain, or is UVA the regional economic engine? Neil Williamson, Free Enterprise Forum. James Watson, you want to start with that one?
I would say it's more of the economic engine, as Juan said. I mean, we would be, not to say anything bad about a Danville or Lexington. Well, if you didn't have William or Washington and Lee, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I think we all could say that we would be a very small, maybe farming community with a couple of historic buildings. So we definitely need UVA. We need them in here. But we're at a moment in time, I'm glad, that people are aware of the social inequity that's historically occurred in Charlottesville. And as terrible as August 12th was, and we don't want to go into that too much, but I think that woke some people up too. And, there's a lot more happening now than any other time I've been here in terms of people that are looking to create opportunities for, all types of disenfranchised people. These conversations are taking place. 10 years ago, excuse me, you didn't hear as many of these conversations. And there's actually people doing stuff. This might seem a little off topic, but I look at this prolific run club.
Yeah.
I mean, that's awesome.
I can't believe you brought this up here. I don't mean to interrupt you here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yolanda Coles-Jones is watching right now.
Right.
Will's better half.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah.
Right.
And Yolanda says, high five to the dad on the panel, loving on his babe on the show. Yeah. Giving you props right now. You bring up Prolific Run Club, and his better half is watching the show as we speak.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, I just see a lot of, we talk, a lot of the negative stuff gets covered in the media, but there really are a lot of people doing good stuff. Like I said, at the Run Club, you look at that, it's everybody. It's not just white people, not just black people, not just old. I mean, everybody. And it's healthy. I haven't been out there. Not yet. I'll get out there.
What'd you look at me when you said old? I'm just saying.
I don't know where to look, man. I'm not used to being I'm looking that way.
Right there. You're doing a great job, James.
But there are, I mentioned the Love No Ego the last time I was on. I mean, he's doing great stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The Conscious Capitalist Group, the We Code 2. I mean, there's so many things. And those weren't necessarily, I don't want to take away from any prior efforts, but I feel like right now there's a synergy. Even though we hear mainly about the negative, there's a synergy. Look at the candidates that we have for city council. Mm-hmm. I mean, every one of them you had on the other day, they're awesome, incredible people. So I don't even remember what the original question was, but I'm excited. I'm a positive guy.
So this social media thing, like I said earlier, can be used for not such good things, or what we're doing right here, right now, having this whole conversation. Jerry watching this feed, and I know Jerry's face. We've been doing this for
we got more comments coming in. We got to get to them.
I can see when his eyes.
We got to get to them.
So in other words, Smith, shut up.
Mustache Dan Pettit. He says we are slowly driving out the people who don't drive and are using bus lines for their transportation. That is just one concern that I have. Kenneth Martin has a question for the candidate and for all of us. Okay, Kenneth Martin says, student off-grounds housing continue to pay significant real estate taxes by agreements with City Council in the 90s. They have been invited to come down West Main and are now looking at JPA. Please also relay this to the panel. Students do not burden the roads and they do not utilize our schools. So he's basically saying with that last comment, almost like a tourist, they come here looking to spend money, enjoy the community, and then they leave without driving on our roads, without taxing our schools here? Anywhere you want to go with this one?
Yeah, well, I think that again, I don't want to get into labeling, but I think that they do have an impact on our roadway, whether it's them calling an Uber driver or them actually. I know many of them have nice cars, in here. Usually, if they after that first or second year, if they move off campus, they're going to have usually a nice vehicle somewhere parked. If you go to any of the communities adjacent to the university, you will see cars parked on grass everywhere, type of, and so that's what I mean is that as a community, the students are going to be here, anywhere between 25 and 30,000 students between grad and undergraduate. They're here in the summertime. They go. That's when the family and we decide to go.
We go to the corner.
To go to a restaurant,
Yeah.
and that's, you kind of get into that flow. It is what it is, but we want to embrace this and understand that how can we as a community, because I know that many, as a school board member, we know that many of those students come into our schools to volunteer, to tutor, to mentor. That's positive, but they also increase the burden on housing and for grocery. The shopping centers and things, because students tend to be able to pay a little bit more. Things are just packaged different and things for college students, and it's a little bit more expensive. You can see the offerings in grocery stores in Barracks Road, at Kroger and things will be different from the Kroger and things further down 29. That's because the students are there. It's not good or bad. It is what it is. And so, as a community, and if I'm elected, we want to see how, we can live together. We have been, and some people, it has not been positive. We want to make this a place where everyone can live. I don't want to have a community where people that work at the university, outside of professors and deans and things like that they have to move to Louisa or adjacent counties because they can't afford to live here. And we're seeing a lot more of that.
They need to go to Augusta, looking at my numbers right now, in order to afford this. And Jerry and I were talking about this. Realtor magazine just put out the first-time home buyer, number 9 in the country was Harrisonburg, and that actually encompasses Augusta and Fishersville in that radius that they use. And Quentin Beckham and I were joking around by this. It's not drive to you qualify anymore. Now it's like fly to you qualify, right? But what's happening here is I had an MRI done 2 days ago, and the gentleman that was working on me lives in Harrisonburg and travels the hour and 15 minutes every day. And this is just not right.
Yeah.
I mean, over 70% of City of Charlottesville employees can't afford to live in the City of Charlottesville.
But this UVA thing, this is a love-hate relationship. It cuts both ways, guys, right? You can't have one without the other. And I think that's what Juan is trying to say on that end of it. But
this is the challenge I have. Okay, I'm gonna throw this to you.
Yeah, sure.
I shoot it straight here.
Yeah, sure.
This is the challenge I have. If we continue to up enrollment numbers at the University of Virginia and bring more students to Charlottesville, and don't get me wrong, if the University of Virginia was not in Charlottesville, your business wouldn't be as good. My business wouldn't be as good. I mean, the economy.
We probably wouldn't be sitting here talking.
We probably wouldn't be doing this right now. The economy. I may not even be an entrepreneur.
May not even be here.
I mean, probably would not be here.
Yeah.
You're probably right. He's probably right. So it's a catch-22, if you may. So
it cuts both ways.
If we have more students come to the university, where are they going to live?
So it actually compounds it.
Yeah.
From our world, the people that actually are sucking up most of the inventory are the folks that come back.
Yeah.
Right? The folks that went to UVA, went to wherever they went, came back, and these are these cash buyers. These are, in my opinion, part of the reason why there's only one house, one single-family detached. Actually, it's an attached home, under $250,000 currently on the market in the city of Charlottesville. So it's this. Look, to quote our dear friend Robert Liberty from Portland State University, it's not a silver bullet, it's a silver buckshot. I chair the land trust. I happen to think that's a really good couple of bullets, a couple of pellets in there. It creates permanent affordability on the end of it. But
I mean, maybe we consider options like, do you consider options where, like, if you're a university student, first, second, and third year, you got to live on grounds?
do they have
I
the
agree with that. Even some of the graduates, not to cut you off, but like I said, I mean, some of these people that are coming to law school in Darden, they're not your typical grad student. They're
buying cribs.
Yeah, and they're coming from New York and Atlanta, and they've already made a couple dollars. I want to just say one thing though. What's interesting about Charlottesville is we look at having to drive 20 miles, right, till you can find somewhere to live as sort of a horrible reality. But I worked a long time in the Beltway, and I lived here, believe it or not. But in that area, you drive 40 miles, 50 miles. We don't even have the highway infrastructure. Like, if you can get from, 20 miles outside of Charlottesville on a decent highway, or you had a rail or bus alternative, dedicated bus that would bring you in, it wouldn't seem as horrible. I mean, Richmond, for example, if you live 10 minutes outside of Richmond, 20 minutes outside of Richmond, nobody ever says, oh, that's horrible. But it's interesting here that because of the rural roadways you have to drive on and no alternative transit, it's something that we look down upon. And the last thing is, we really have to look at Albemarle County, because that's our only solution. That's the only area there's undeveloped land close to Charlottesville, but there's a lot of
Restrictions.
A lot of
There's
restrictions.
6 houses for sale in Albemarle County under $250,000.
And it's one of the wealthiest counties in the country.
6
Yeah.
So
under 250. Augusta has 15.
Man. First-time home buyers are in a tough spot right here.
seems like to me all the primary development, mixed use in Albemarle primarily is in Crozet, which is nothing wrong with that, but it seems like that is attracting the group you were talking about earlier, who went to UVA, graduated, come back, they work from home. That's not everybody. I'm not trying to,
Sure.
but
That's a lot of people, though.
But there has to be a solution in some of the immediately surrounding urban ring, or right as you come out of that urban ring, places for people to live and buy a house or rent. Somebody calls you out on just talking about buying houses, and affordable rent is another reality, right? And getting people ultimately to the point where they can buy a house.
But they're tied together, though. As sale inventory goes, so does rental rates, right? But I just did a quick count here of the 46 homes that are available in this radius I was talking about. 24 of them are either in Waynesboro or Augusta County.
So I think it would be good to look at some of the cities across the country that are eliminating single family unit developments. I think Minneapolis did it, and Portland, you mentioned Portland and Sacramento, they're moving towards that to see.
No, Portland's there.
They're there?
They're there. And Seattle's there too. But just not to interrupt you, Juandiego, they're not eliminating single family. They're not saying you can't do it. The restrictions are so high that you physically can't do it, but they're giving options out. So I apologize to interrupt.
No, I'd say that, I think that here in this community that would be probably a hard sell, but because it's a change, and just like anyone, change will be hard, but that's the discussion that we have to have, and we have to have it in an environment that we can foster different opinions to see how we can move forward. And right now, it's really hard to have that, and that's the type of environment that I hope to create, that I hope to be part of. But we have to have this type of discussion.
So in our business world, we use the term low-hanging fruit, right? Yeah. So the low-hanging fruit, in my opinion, has always been these ADUs, auxiliary dwelling units. It's something we can do now. And the 2 cities you mentioned, Portland and Seattle, what they did is they removed the owner-occupied requirement, which the city council can do. They can do that at any city council meeting. And the problem that they had out there with these ADUs, to go to James's point, we talked about this last Friday. You've got to be a developer. You've got to understand how to do this. To navigate this is not an easy thing. And what was happening was, as homeowners were doing it, borrowing $200,000, not $100,000, to do it. And unfortunately, they were losing their houses to foreclosure because they just didn't have the tools and the knowledge to go ahead and do it. And what they did is they removed that, and then land trusts came in. Right, the nonprofits came in. So right now in the city of Charlottesville, if the land trust wants to go and buy a home in Belmont and put an ADU in it, we can't do it.
You have to live there.
We can't do it, right?
Yeah.
And so we could potentially go out with our partnership with PH, raise the capital, buy something in Belmont, right? Hold on to the land, sell the house at $200,000, build a 500, 600, 700 square foot ADU, rent it to somebody for $800 a month or whatever it is, and we've just created 2 solutions from zero.
Yeah.
And we can't do it. And this is something that I've been on my soapbox for years. And the funny thing is it's the city's own fault. They sent me out there originally to do this. I'm doing this on my own expense from this point forward. But that's something that can be done now.
Yeah.
You can say, hey, if you're an affordable housing nonprofit, you don't have to have an owner-occupied requirement.
Can the council do that, or does that have to go up to Richmond?
No, city council do it. It's already got an
Where's
existing.
Michael Payne at? Call him up.
Laura's got this comment. This is a good comment. James, I'll throw this to you.
Okay.
Guys, I've thoroughly enjoyed the show. I've watched the entire program. Can you guys talk about big companies coming to this area, big companies like Dexcom, and the impact it's going to have on Charlottesville?
So this is where we need, I guess, guys like myself, guys like Juan, some of the other folks in this community that are very concerned about, people losing their homes and people that have been here for decades being priced out. I think that we need to begin to communicate with these publicly traded corporations that are about to come here, who, multi-million-dollar companies, which we haven't had. It's mainly been the UVA show in Charlottesville in terms of the major employer, and I think State Farm and S&P Global. But there are some companies that are coming here now that have never been here, and I think they have the fat in the wallet that we can say, hey, look, we need you guys to commit to hiring 8%, of people locally that have been here. We need you guys to do some job training. Let's work with Charlottesville high school students. Let's work with the technical school. We can't just have big companies coming here because companies will come here from Silicon Valley and say, hey, Charlottesville's cheap. What we consider expensive, they may consider cheap. Right?
Compare it like San Francisco.
Yeah.
Or you can work with the Charlottesville Scholarship, which Juandiego sits on the board, and say, hey, look, we'll donate X amount of dollars to help kids get an education. And James and I were navigators on that, and I only had the opportunity to do 2 students, but it opened my eyes to a world that I never knew existed.
Yeah. But taking on what James said, I think that I think we want to have these businesses and that revenue in, but we can say, listen, we have the workforce here.
That's right.
Instead of bringing 30, 40% of your staff from the West Coast, well, let's train the people here because they are theoretically already living here. And so that's not creating, as much additional burden on housing. And that's some discussion we can have with Alexandra with, how they're handling it with Amazon moving in, or is it Arlington?
Crystal City.
Probably
Crystal.
both when it's all said and done.
They're taking over the world.
Pentagon City,
Yeah, but and when these companies come and say, well, what's your need? And so once we find any, we can work with K-Tech, the local high schools, the school departments, and say, we can, and PVCC, and start training individuals to meet their need instead of say, well, okay, we're going to bring our own crew over. It's like, no, we got this type of thing. So
This is a comment here that's really important to me. It's from Linda Bowen.
yes.
Linda Bowen has this comment. Can you guys talk about the solutions to keeping long-term residents who are feeling the pressure of higher real estate taxes and are living on a fixed income. This really hits close to home for what I'm about. She says, can you talk about the solutions to keeping long-term residents who are feeling the pressure of higher real estate taxes and are living on a fixed income?
Can I tackle that first,
Yes.
gentlemen? So that's what this land trusts are doing out in Portland and Seattle, and this is what they're doing with these ADUs, and this is why it's so important from my soapbox that it doesn't have to be owner-occupied, because one of the paths that they have taken, let's call it what it is, it's gentrification, right?
Yeah.
And what's happening is the land trust buys it, owns the land, and then the person who's been living in it for generations gets to stay there for life rights, right?
Yeah.
And then they rent out an ADU and they receive a little bit of income. So there's a whole path there, but none of that path can start unless that one provision gets changed.
Yeah.
There's no help that you can give these folks, because ultimately they're going to get pressured out, and maybe folks that look more like the two of us are going to be moving in there, and we're missing an opportunity.
I would say this, and throw it to you. I would say this to Linda, that there are tax incentive programs
Correct.
to help minimize tax exposure for citizens that are living on fixed incomes, Juan.
Yes,
There is.
and that's what I would, say that there's definitely not one tool to settle everything, but we will have to talk with that individual and find out what their issues are, what their concerns are, what their fears are, because I know that there are some of the people that I've talked to in some of these neighborhoods that they wouldn't sign any documents because it's the trust.
Oh, yeah,
They're like,
sure.
I'm not sure. Are you going to take it? What do you mean? It's life right. Are you going to try to kill me? I'm telling you, these are some of the concerns out there in the communities of color because of the distrust, because of the history. And so part of it is the land trust. Part of it will be tax abatement. Part of it will be maybe some policies, minor things that we could do maybe with AHIP to go into do some minor improvements. They don't want anyone else living in the house. If they haven't had anyone maybe since their spouse died 20 or 30 years ago. They don't want anyone now, but they want to stay there.
Education.
Education.
Good answer, Juan. Good answer. What do you think, James?
I think Juan is right. No,
Yeah,
kinda
I
zoned
think
out
Juan
a
is
bit.
right too.
I was had a couple different thoughts flowing through my head. Now, just interesting, and kind of jumping around here a little bit, thinking about solutions, to this reality, right? I don't want to call it just a problem because I do think economic growth is positive, right?
Let's call it a challenge.
Yeah. I mean, you can go to places in the Midwest like Cleveland and parts of Detroit where you can see abandoned homes for blocks and blocks and old factories, and we're actually growing. So the key is to leverage anything we can along this pathway. We do have a lot of properties on 29 that are underutilized, and it's just a matter of thinking outside of the box and taking some of that commercial zoning. We always talk about Fashion Square Mall, the Seminole Square where Marshalls and Giant and Big Lots. Can we redevelop those properties to be housing? There's infrastructure there, there's plumbing, electrical, all that is already there. I think that across on 29 is the Knights Inn is going to be used for housing the homeless. So that's a win right there, right? That's a tangible example of taking something that's underutilized because we don't have new dirt, right?
Anthony Harrow, man, a hero of mine.
Exactly.
Anthony Harrow.
So, I mean, there's several different things. There's no one, magic buckshot, as you guys always say. Mm-hmm. But I think if we can sort of, organize, highlight, what are the tangible things that can be done to slow down the gentrification, but still maximize on the money that's coming through, right? If you have the money, you take, Danville again, I think they're trying to bring in a casino, in multiple casinos, because, the furniture manufacturing industry died, and
They got nothing.
they're desperate, right?
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
at least we're not desperate. We just got to figure that out. How do we leverage the resources that are coming this way?
Quentin Beckham has got a question for us. He's the president of the Charlottesville Association of Realtors. He says, honest question, gentlemen, would upzoning help with real estate taxes for current residents? For example, denser houses and similar budget equaling less cost per household. He's basically saying if we have more houses, we can spread the real estate tax exposure out because we have more sources of income per rooftop.
Your
Yeah.
taxes will go up, though, because you've got more units on a parcel. So there will be an increase of taxes, but he's right.
Well, no, what he's saying is the municipality
Okay, got
will
it.
get the same tax revenue,
Got
but
it.
my house will not have the tax exposure because we have more housing
I got
stock.
it. I got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I just want to add that again could be an additional tool that we can consider as a community. I think that some people certainly would want that, but others, again, it's been their house. It's been that way. They don't want any change. They just want to stay there, and we want to be able to make that possible, if at all.
And again, silver buckshot, there's no one solution.
Yes,
This
sir.
one particular program that I'm part of out in Portland seems to be working, but it's not the silver bullet. It's not the end all be all. Juandiego, I do want to play off of the education component from a personal perspective.
Yes.
Nassau Street, the Thomas Jefferson Land Trust, we have done 4 units over there. And I'm in the business. I'm in the real estate business. I'm in the business of buying and helping folks buy and sell houses. And I will tell you, the folks that we helped buy that, we never talked about the house. We talked about trust, right? And we talked about, do I trust you? And that knocked me on my heels a little bit because, I was like, whoa. And then I understood when they started explaining it from their perspective, then I went, oh, I got it. No? Oh, okay, cool. Let's not talk about house. Let's talk about trust, right? And they were multiple conversations about trust. And eventually we won their trust. I think we did. They moved into 4 homes. There was 4 homeowners of them, of all diverse races and creeds and beliefs on it, of everything from African American family to a Bhutanese refugees, single mother with white, and it was just, but it was, every one of them was trust.
So Keith, that's the foundation of so much. That's the foundation of when I go to start to mentor a young person, is that we have to establish that trust, that he knows that I'm going to be there when I'm saying I'm going to do something. Sometimes at first they don't show up, but I'm always there. If I'm saying I'm going to be there, I'm there. But once I establish that trust, that relationship, that commitment is going to be there for 5 or 6 years. But that first 6 months or a year or so it's kind of dicey. But I have to show that they can trust me, that I'm going to do what I'm saying I'm going to do. But without that, nothing else is going to be built on shaky foundation.
Well, to be successful in our line of work, it's all about relationships, not transactions.
Yeah.
So, but it was an added dynamic to it that, to be honest and direct to everybody. I was taken back by it for a second. Well, I'm volunteering. Of course you can trust me.
Yeah.
And then I realized...
Hey, you're not getting paid. You're doing this because you want to give back.
I want to give back.
Yeah.
And then I realized, whoa.
Right.
That was about me, right? That wasn't about them. And then once I broke that me down, then we ultimately got there. And so to me, it's a constant learning process. And
Yes, sir.
I thank you for bringing that up because it made me remind me of that, and that it needs to be about them and or the person who we're trying to help, and not us. So thank you for bringing that up.
This is a really interesting comment here. This is from Stefan. He says, maybe we're looking at this wrong. Maybe we just need to continue with the direction things are going and just allow the expansion to go even further into Albemarle. Maybe Charlottesville's built to the fullest extent of it can be. What are your thoughts?
The problem is it's not Albemarle. It's only 6 in Albemarle.
Well, I guess what he's alluding to is
it's
if we expanded the developable area in Albemarle.
Oh.
Keith, so why is there no development south of Charlottesville for the most part? If you go 29, if you take 250 bypass and you start going 29 south, beyond the JPA extended Fontaine exit, if you don't get off right there and you stay on 29 south, instantly you're in rural, landscape. There's no
You're saying like the
shopping.
Fontaine area?
Yeah, but if you go on 29 south, you just start going south towards
Nelson County.
Like Dr.
right,
Hose?
Dr. Hose.
Yeah.
Mhm. So you got a 20-mile strip maybe between JPA and Dr. Hose. I don't know how long it really is. And I don't know if there's a handful of families that just own a lot of land, which is typical of Albemarle County.
I can talk a little bit about that because Jesse Rutherford was on the show, which he announced his candidacy. He sits on a couple of bodies with me, organizations with me. And you know that this is our world, right? It's an infrastructure problem.
I've heard that when I was in grad school that there's no, again, I keep saying plumbing,
Now, it's
electrical,
an interesting thing.
Yeah.
It's only an infrastructure thing from a water and sewer perspective. Mm-hmm. The road infrastructure, man, that's a perfect road.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And guess what? They got fiber, right? So they're missing this two component. And there's some consideration about, James, help me out, Livingston.
Right.
Right, because Livingston has water and sewer, but then there's a geographical layout, right? Because you gotta.
That's pretty far.
Well, no, the topographical layout from a development
Not as much,
perspective, it's a little.
site improvement.
The site improvement is expensive.
That area is where Deschutes wanted to go. Deschutes Brewery.
Right.
And they ended up picking Roanoke.
Yeah.
And the Board of Supervisors at the time, it was going to be 110 new jobs Deschutes Brewery was going to bring. And then they did the land already picked out. Scott Warner of J.W. Sieg and Virginia Eagle was a part of that deal.
Right.
And the Board of Supervisors and Deschutes couldn't make the deal happen. But you're right, that little stretch of land is just green space. And it's like a hop, skip, and a jump from the city.
You're at Fontaine Research Park. If
Like 5 minutes.
Hospital person, Because if you think about it, if you
That's a
look
good
at
idea.
it like a clock, if you put 29 North at 12 o'clock, okay, so most of that is built out, right? Strip malls. Now, I know you have a lot of new neighborhoods going up 29, but it's kind of built out to some degree, and there's a lot of traffic, no matter how you look at it. If you go east, you're kind of running against Monticello a little bit, that whole corridor. If you go west, I mean, it's big money. You go west, it's all built from Bel Air Market west.
You got to go over the hill when you go west.
You start going south, it appears to be less developed in terms of...
I can assure you it's being looked at because
Right.
I just know that firsthand. It's these three big issues: water, sewer, and the topographical layout. They have the road transportation, and Jesse was mentioning, in Nelson County, they have room for children in their school system, right? In Nelson, correct?
Wow.
Yeah, they for years have been losing children in their school system over there, and I can't remember the number, and I won't quote something I don't know, but it's the water and the sewer, and then if you're going to try to do a project of some size, right, the topographical layout becomes super challenging from a development perspective.
So many hills and...
Yeah.
Good show. Linda Bowen says, great show, gentlemen. Absolutely great show. Watch from start to finish. How about some closing words? Juandiego Wayne.
Yeah, I just have to say that, if we educate, communicate, we will be able to address these issues, and it has to be some compromises all the way around. So that's what I have to say.
Yeah, I just want to thank you guys for inviting me to the show, and thank my son back here for being good.
He's been good. He's been good.
Yeah.
Closing word? You want to say anything?
Xavier, you want to come and say
Take
something?
your mask off real quick.
No.
Are you sure?
Come on, man.
Say something about Uncle Keith.
You don't want to give me Uncle Keith?
He's my uncle.
He's
My uncle, right? Don't want to
You
give me
did
a
a
hug,
good
huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, he's done really. He actually told me he didn't want to play. You guys are probably wondering, why is he not on an iPad or something like that? He said, I don't even want the iPad.
Nice.
Really?
I said,
Good
all
for
right,
you,
well, here's
man.
some crayons and all that. And he said, nope, I'm just going to chill out with you guys. So
Hey,
Cool,
that's,
man.
what,
Hey,
that's what he wanted to
Xavier.
do.
Xavier.
I'm surprised. But
Xavier, thank you for being so cool, man.
Yeah,
Thank
Xavier,
you.
you're good today.
Thank you.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you for coming to the show. How old are you, Xavier?
Good.
How old are you?
How old are you?
6. Wow.
He's 6, yeah.
Well behaved. Tall.
Yeah, 97 percentile. At
I
the
see
moment.
that.
So
I see
We'll see.
that. You're proud uncle over there.
A little bit.
Yeah, I can tell.
I haven't-
Proud dad.
I haven't seen him in a while. I'm just sitting here smiling.
Yona says,
Yeah.
Yona says, I see you, Xavier. I see you, Xavier. Your aunt is watching, and she says she loves you. She's giving you props. See right there? Hello, Xavier, I see you. She says it right there.
So Xavier, Yona is on a train. So she's watching you on a train on her iPhone, going up to see Yvonne, Yasmina,
And Harry Tyson is giving you some props right now.
is that baby Harry?
Yeah,
HK?
that's Big Harry.
Big
Right.
Harry.
Big. Oh, yeah.
In
Right.
Connecticut. So Juan,
Don't kick that
that's
over.
his son-in-law. which is family to Xavier and James.
Yeah.
We need to invite these guys over to a family get-together because we
I've
do have a
heard.
very interesting and diverse, multi-generational, different parts of the country, different races. Very interesting. It took me a little while.
Whoa. Explain interesting. Explain interesting.
Well, you say there's no FCC rules here, but I'll just
There is no FCC.
Since the young man is here, But, we
we
have
do good.
Yeah.
Interesting and we have so now in the next few months we can start. Everybody's getting vaccinated, so we can start getting together again.
We have very open and honest and direct dialogue. Would that be a fair statement?
Yeah,
Yep.
and everybody's got different. Not everybody, but there's different political views. And,
All different political views.
We stay away from that. Though.
Different,
Certain family
different,
members.
absolutely. So, but that's what makes this country great. We can sit around, have a conversation, have a cocktail.
Yep.
But what really happens is you and I sneak off in a corner and talk this stuff and try to solve
affordable
this
housing
stuff.
and
That's what we do. And everybody's over there drinking wine, and we're trying to solve the world's problems, and these folks are drinking. So, Juandiego, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for agreeing to show up. For my show, for Real Talk, anytime you want to sit in that seat, all you got to do is reach out, and it's there for you. James, not so much. But anytime, man, anytime. Thank you for being here, guys.
Thank you.
Keith Smith, Juandiego Way, James Watson. Guys, it's Real Talk on the I Love CVille Network. I hope you enjoyed the roundtable. Thank you for joining us on a Friday. We will see you in about 55 minutes on the I Love CVille show. You guys take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good work, guys.
All right.
Thank you, gentlemen. Xavier, thank you, man. You were great.